Hey friends, tonight I'm going to tell you a true crime story in a gentle way, one that starts with something small, just a note, just a key, but turns into the kind of mystery that keeps whispering through the years. Before we sink into the shadows together, go ahead and get cozy. But first, if you like what I do here, if these soft spoken stories help you drift off or satisfy your curiosity just enough to rest easy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, only if you truly enjoy what I create. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Share your city and what time it is for you right now. I always imagine little lights flicking on across the country, maybe even the world, as we begin. Now lights off, fan on for that gentle hum, and let's begin tonight's journey. You're walking through a quiet town where the streetlights hum louder than the people. It's late fall, and the air smells like old leaves and distant chimney smoke. The houses are modest, the mailboxes dented, and there's always that one flickering porch light no one ever seems to fix. This is where she lived, Mara Sullivan. Not exactly a headline name. No true crime podcast ever went viral from her story. But if you look closely enough, behind the yellowed newspaper clippings and water-stained case files, there's something off, something that won't settle. You imagine her walking these sidewalks, brown boots, headphones in, key looped on her finger, like she's done it 1,000 times. Except one night, that routine ended. They found her car, parked perfectly, windows up. Inside, her phone, untouched, wallet zipped. But Mara, gone. The last person to see her, her roommate Carla, said Mara had come home early that day, tossed her backpack on the floor, said something about needing air. Then she left. That night, Carla found a note on Mara's bed, scrawled in her usual loopy handwriting. Don't lock the door. I'll be back before midnight. Only she wasn't. The strange part? The key. Mara always carried it, wore it around her neck like jewelry. But after she vanished, the key was found under her pillow. Why would she hide it there if she was coming back? Was it for someone else? Someone who needed access without questions? Now don't worry. You're not here to solve this. You're just here to listen. Let the pieces slip gently into place, like puzzle edges you're too tired to connect. Here's a quiet truth to carry into sleep. In the late 1990s, small towns in the Northeast had higher rates of adult female disappearances than any other region in the U.S. outside urban centers. Why? Some say it's the vast stretches of forest, the desolate highways. Others point to economic instability and the rise of transient workforces. And then there's the third camp. They think there's something about places like this, isolated towns that cradle secrets like they're part of the soil. You pass a boarded-up gas station, the kind with sun-faded signs, still advertising soda for 89 cents. That's where her car was found, just a mile down from home. But there were no cameras, no witnesses, just nothing. You're not dreaming, not yet, but you're floating in that gray space where time softens. So here's something weird. 2 weeks after she vanished, someone reported seeing her walking through a farmer's market 3 towns over. She looked dazed, they said, like she was looking for someone. Was it really her? Or just another brunette in a too big coat? There's an academic theory, one I kind of love, that says we often overreport sightings of missing people because our brains are trained to find patterns, even where none exist. It's called apophenia, or as I like to call it, the hope glitch. You settle deeper. The bed creaks softly. Maybe you're already halfway under. Before you drift, here's one last curious thing. Mara's laptop, left untouched in her room, had one thing open: a draft email. Blank, except for the subject line. I'm not who you think I am. No recipient, no body text, no send. But the timestamp? 10 minutes before she walked out that door. Sleep on that, or don't. That's the magic of whispered crime. The subject line echoes softly in your head. I'm not who you think I am. You stare at it like you're the one opening the laptop, as if the glow of the screen could warm the chill that creeps down your spine. It doesn't. Instead, you imagine yourself sitting on the edge of that unmade bed, surrounded by posters curling at the edges, a bookshelf with a missing shelf, and the faint scent of lavender dryer sheets still clinging to the air. She was 22, not a runaway, not a criminal, just Mara Sullivan, journalism major, barista on weekends, cat owner, occasional nail biter. Nothing about her screamed mystery. And yet, Carla, the roommate, told investigators that Mara had seemed distant. That week, she was late to class. She barely touched her cereal. She kept checking her phone like she was expecting something or someone. When asked who she was texting, she just said, "No one you know. It's nothing." Which, as we both know, is always something. You roll onto your side, one hand under the pillow. There's something about this case that feels like it's reaching out, quietly, softly, but insistently. Oh, and here's a strange little breadcrumb. In her trash bin, they found a torn postcard, half burned. The only words still legible were, "Come back before it's too late." It wasn't her handwriting, and it had no return address. Now, let's pause for a breath. Deep in, soft out. The air in the room is cooler now, like your walls are leaning in just a little, listening with you. You see, there's a historical wrinkle here that might mean something, or maybe not. In colonial New England, vanishing wasn't always treated like a crime. If someone walked into the woods and never came back, the assumption was often spiritual. Witches, possessions, curses tied to the land. Some towns even kept lost day journals, a kind of communal record of when someone just left this plane. No, we're not saying Mara was spirited away, but maybe the culture of the town, the silence, the superstition helped bury the urgency. Here's a tiny, possibly meaningless fact. The local police didn't enter her room for 2 days. Why? Because Carla said maybe she just went to visit a friend. That's what people always say, until they realize the cereal is still in the bowl, the phone charger still plugged in, the cat still hungry. Now brace yourself for something quietly unsettling. 3 years before Mara disappeared, another young woman, same age, same college, also vanished. Her name was Rachel Dunn. Rachel wasn't close to Mara. Different majors, different circles. But guess who wrote the campus paper's piece about Rachel's disappearance? Yep, Mara. Her article was haunting in hindsight. She interviewed Rachel's sister, asked about last messages, strange behavior, even made a little timeline. The title? Some People Don't Run Away, They Just Fade. It won a small journalism award. Mara was proud of it. But what if she wasn't just writing? What if she was researching? You're sinking now. Blanket pulled higher, eyelids heavier. But the puzzle isn't finished. After Mara vanished, Rachel Dunn's sister came forward, said she got an anonymous letter in the mail. It had one line: ask about the key. That's it. No return address, no signature. And yet that key, the one Mara used to wear around her neck, wasn't a house key. Turns out it belonged to a storage unit, one located 2 towns over, registered under a fake name, paid in cash. Police only found it after the sister turned over the letter. Inside the unit, a single shoebox. Inside the box, a faded Polaroid of Mara and Rachel, a tiny silver bell, a flash drive. You shift. The sound of your own breath, your heartbeat, the fan in the background, all that's real. But you still feel like you're inside that cold storage unit, the smell of dust and old cardboard filling your nose. Want to know what was on the flash drive? That's for the next part. For now, let the whisper of Mara's footsteps echo in your dreams. And remember, not all keys unlock doors. Some just open questions. So, what was on the flash drive? You imagine plugging it in, its cheap plastic casing cold in your palm, the tiny LED flickering once. Inside, just one folder, labeled Sparrow. Odd name, right? Not Mara, not Rachel, not even missing, or something obvious. Just Sparrow. When investigators opened the folder, they found 5 video files, grainy, poorly lit, and dated over the course of 7 months, starting a full year before Mara vanished. The first file is only 30 seconds long. It shows Mara sitting in a car late at night. She's looking into the camera, whispering something, too softly to hear. But there's a timestamp in the corner. It's a week after Rachel's disappearance, which means Mara may have known more than she let on. In another video, she's in what looks like a library. She's filming between the stacks, glancing over her shoulder. Then she turns the camera around and mouths a word. You can barely make it out. He's here. There's a long pause. Then the screen goes black. No scream, no sound, just the static hum of a laptop fan. By now, you've probably noticed this isn't your typical bedtime story, but maybe that's why you're still awake. Still, let's take a slow breath together. In through the nose and out. You're okay. This is just a story, a quiet one, whispered like a secret in the dark. Let's pull back a little. Here's your historical nugget to roll around in your half-dreaming brain. In the early 2000s, small towns like this were undergoing a digital shift. Surveillance cameras became more common, yet most systems weren't connected. So unless someone physically handed over footage, it often disappeared into the void of outdated hard drives and erased tapes. That's what happened here. The gas station where Mara's car was found had a camera, old, flickering. The owner said it hadn't worked in years. But months after the case went cold, a maintenance tech found something in the DVR slot, a tape labeled April 3rd loop. Guess what date Mara disappeared? Yep, they played it. The image was rough, grainy like a dream you half remember, but in the corner of the screen, just barely visible, is a figure standing near Mara's car, wearing a hoodie, not moving, not leaving, just standing. He or she remained there for 24 minutes, until the camera finally glitched to black. No one recognized the figure, and no license plate, no face, no movement that could help identify them. Now let's toss in something strange, one of those details that feels too odd not to mention. Inside that shoebox from the storage unit, alongside the flash drive, was a second key, tiny, rusted, but marked with a bird icon, a sparrow. It didn't match any locks police had until they checked an abandoned motel across state lines. One room was still locked. Room 6, inside nothing, except a mural painted across the wall. In soft, fading strokes, a field of sparrows, and right in the middle, in tiny red letters, someone had written. She remembered everything. No fingerprints, no other items, just the echo of something unfinished. You blink slowly now, your eyes heavy. But there's one more twist for tonight. Rachel Dunn, remember her? 3 months after Mara vanished, Rachel's name showed up again on a rental application filed online in another state. It was denied because the address didn't exist. But the IP address, it traced back to the same storage facility where that key was hidden. A loop, a note, a sparrow. You're not meant to solve this, only to wonder gently as the darkness folds around you, because some girls vanish and others leave a trail that only appears when you whisper. You drift a little, not fully asleep, but not quite here either, like you're walking down a hallway that doesn't end, just curves quietly, endlessly, into shadow. That's where the story lives now, in those curves, in those quiet places between what we know and what we almost remember. Act 2 begins not with a scream or a clue, but with a whisper from someone who claims they were there, not when Mara disappeared, but when she came back. The police never released this, but in a sealed part of the case file, one that only came to light after a retired officer spoke to a local reporter, there's an email sent from an encrypted address. Subject line, "She walks again." The message, just a single sentence. She remembers who she is now, but not where she went. Creepy? Sure, but here's the weirdest part. The email was sent from a public library in the same town where Rachel's sister lives. You wrap your blanket tighter, maybe without realizing. The air feels just a little cooler, but not dangerous, just curious. You wonder, is it really possible to forget where you've been? Or is it something deeper, like a refusal, a survival instinct? Now we need to talk about the bell. Remember that silver bell in the shoebox? It wasn't just decorative. Turns out those tiny bells are often used in what's called lucid grounding, a practice used in certain psychiatric facilities to help patients stay present during dissociation episodes. They jingle softly, reminding the person they're still here, still real, still in this world. So why did Mara, or whoever placed that bell there, have one? Was she being treated, or was she trying to remind herself of something she couldn't afford to forget? Let's take a little side path. Historically, bells have been used as anchors in spiritual practices too. In some Appalachian traditions, for example, a small silver bell was hung over a doorway to prevent spirits from crossing through. It wasn't just folklore, it was ritual, protection. So, what was Mara protecting herself from? Let's go deeper. The mural in that motel, remember the field of sparrows? After a sharp eyed Reddit user found an old photo of the room pre closure, it was confirmed. The mural wasn't added after Mara vanished, it was already there, meaning she, or someone, chose that room on purpose. Maybe she had been there before, or maybe she believed something had been waiting for her there. Now here's the detail that's kept local forums buzzing for years. A missing person poster. But not Mara's, someone else. A girl named Lydia Vance. Disappeared in 1986. Same town, same age, same hairstyle, eerily enough. Her flyer, creased and yellow, was found taped behind the mural, hidden, preserved, like someone wanted it to be found, but only after the right pieces fell into place. Guess what was written in marker on Lydia's photo? Sparrow 1. A theory began to form. Online, of course, because that's where all ghost stories go now. Some believe Sparrow isn't a name, it's a label for girls who vanish under similar circumstances. And possibly, though no one can prove this, resurface years later, changed, not older, just different. You shift again, half lost in the sheets. The fan is a soft hum now, matching your pulse. This is the part of the night where dreams grow teeth. So here's a small academic curiosity. There's a disputed paper from the early 90s about episodic fugue states. It claims, though peer reviewers pushed back, that multiple individuals over the span of decades reported phantom timelines after returning from missing person events, meaning they remembered lives they never lived, names, cities, even people that no one else could verify. They called it memory drift syndrome. And guess what the author titled the final chapter? Birds that forget their nest. Coincidence? Maybe, maybe not. But it makes you wonder, what if Mara wasn't just missing? What if she was somewhere else? Somewhere we don't have a map for. Somewhere memory unravels, and the only way back is with a bell, a note, and a key. You breathe a little slower now. The whisper of the fan blends into the story, like wind sliding through a cracked motel window. You don't know what's real anymore, and that's okay. This is a whispered crime, after all, the kind that slips past logic and rests quietly in your chest. Let's go back to the note. Don't lock the door. I'll be back before midnight. Short, innocent, but let's pick at the edges. A forensic linguist, yes, that's a real thing, was brought in 6 months after Mara disappeared. She examined the note and found something odd. The structure didn't match Mara's previous handwriting samples. She almost always used contractions. I'll instead of I will, don't instead of do not. But this note, it said, I will be back before midnight. Clean, formal, almost rehearsed. It was rewritten before police noticed, of course. In the media, the phrase appeared with the contraction. Someone had tidied it for the public. But the original felt staged, like someone wanted it to seem casual, but didn't quite know how to be Mara. And that, dear listener, raises a haunting possibility. What if Mara didn't write the note? Or worse, what if she did, but not for Carla? You roll onto your back, staring at the ceiling, blinking slowly. Because here's the next twist. Carla disappeared too. Not then, no, not during the height of the investigation. She stuck around, answered questions, even did one interview with a late-night local talk show. She talked about how Mara was like a sister, how they stayed up late watching true crime shows together. She cried, real tears, probably, and then a year later, gone. No packed bags, no resignation at her job, just stopped showing up. Her landlord said the apartment smelled like lavender, and the only thing left behind, a tiny silver bell hanging from the doorknob. Now you may be wondering if there's a connection. Of course there is, but we don't know what kind. This is where things shift from crime to something more liminal. Not ghosts, not aliens, but something between. Remember the second key? The one with the sparrow engraved? Another one surfaced. A maintenance worker cleaning out an abandoned rail car deep in the woods found it under a floorboard, same size, same engraving. And tucked beside it, in a plastic bag, was a photograph. Not Mara, not Rachel, but Lydia Vance, the girl from 1986, smiling at the camera, holding a sign that read, "Back soon." There's no record of that picture, no digital trail, no negative, no original. And the style of the photograph? It doesn't match any known format from the 80s. You begin to understand what's being whispered here. This isn't just about missing people. It's about repeating patterns. Girls with no obvious connection, linked only by sparse evidence, vanishing in a way that leaves no tracks, but echoes. Even the name Sparrow shows up in folklore. There's an old northern tale, half nursery rhyme, half warning. If the sparrow taps 3 times, the girl will not return. Children would chant it while skipping rope. creepy, sure, but just a rhyme, right? Unless a retired librarian posted on an obscure forum claiming she once saw Mara checking out a book called Echoes of the Bird Witch, a local folklore collection. Inside was a chapter titled The Sparrow Bell and the Door That Doesn't Close. In the margins, someone had scribbled, "Find the field, leave the key, do not stay past midnight." That page was torn out, gone by the time investigators got to the library. Let's take a breath. This part gets heavier. After Carla's disappearance, her parents received a package, no return address. Inside, a USB drive, one file, a voice recording, just 7 seconds long. It was Carla's voice, whispering, "I remember the field, but I forgot what I buried." Then static. No one could trace the origin. And the voice? Experts said it wasn't a match. Too much distortion. Too low. But the parents insisted that was Carla. So where does that leave you? Floating. In the middle of a story with no straight lines, no clear villains, no final answers. But that's okay. You're not solving anything. You're just listening. Let the words pull you deeper. Let the key turn gently in the back of your mind, because what's buried might still rise. And the bell? It's still ringing. You hear it now, don't you? Not loud, not close, but it's there. A bell, faint and metallic, as if it's swinging slowly in the wind, somewhere far off, or maybe deep inside the story. This is where everything gets stranger. You're ready, though, curled up, mind open just enough, body heavy and safe. Because strangeness doesn't always mean danger. Sometimes it just means you're about to understand something differently. Let's talk about the field. The phrase kept coming up on the mural, in the torn book, in Carla's recording. The field. But which fields? Turns out, about 30 minutes outside of the town where Mara lived, there's an old floodplain, no longer used for farming. Locals call it the Waver, because the grass there moves in windless silence, almost like it's breathing. Oh, creepy. But that's not the weird part. The weird part is this. In the center of the Waver, there's a patch where nothing grows. A perfect circle, dry, cracked, untouched by rain or sun. They say it's been that way for decades. And in the middle of that dead circle, a single wooden post. No markings, no rope, just standing there. Some think it used to be a fence post. Others think it's a grave marker. But here's the kicker. One early morning, long before Mara's disappearance, a jogger claimed he saw someone standing next to that post. A young woman, in boots, holding a key. She didn't wave, didn't call out, just turned and stepped into the woods. He didn't follow. Would you? The police tried to track the jogger down again after Mara vanished, but by then he had moved, left no forwarding address. Still, that field began to draw attention. Late-night YouTubers, amateur investigators, drone hobbyists, they all came. Most found nothing, except for one, a woman named Eliza Frey. She runs a paranormal blog called Soft Static, one of those sites with a black background and blinking text. She brought an EMF detector, two cameras, and a silver bell she found at a thrift shop just for aesthetic, she claimed. She filmed for 3 nights straight, and on the second night, she caught something. Just as her camera started glitching, hard to tell if it was the tech or something else, you can hear the bell, clear, ringing 3 times. No wind, no movement. And in the very last frame before the recording ends, something shifts. The post leans, just slightly, as if something beneath it moved. You're breathing slower again. That good kind of slow, like your brain is swimming in fog and the water is just the right temperature. Let's ground you with something real, something historical, even if it doesn't make much sense. In rural Pennsylvania, during the 1800s, there were recorded practices called memory plots. Families would bury symbolic items, a lock of hair, a button, a carved sparrow, believing it would keep lost loved ones tethered to this world, even if their bodies were never found. It was half funeral, half invitation. Come back when you're ready. We saved your place. Guess what Mara's mom said she found in her daughter's closet after the disappearance? A small, carved sparrow. No note, no box, just there, tucked between sweaters, the kind you'd bury, or maybe unbury. Let's throw in a last twist before you fade deeper. 2 weeks ago, yes, 2 weeks ago, someone using an anonymous account uploaded a photo to a local missing persons board. It was a blurry image. A woman in a coat, walking just ahead of the camera through a long, misty field. The caption read, "She turned when I called her name, but it wasn't Mara anymore." Then the account vanished, deleted, gone, but the post remains. And when you zoom in on the photo, right at the woman's side, a small silver bell. It's a story that loops, not linearly, not cleanly, but softly, in a spiral, like a bird returning to a nest it didn't build. And you're just listening, feeling the feathers brush past your ears. We're almost there. The final act is waiting. But first, rest for a moment. Close your eyes if they're not closed already. Because what comes next, it remembers you. Your body sinks deeper. Not into fear, not into certainty, just into stillness. A quiet wait that lets the story drift closer without resistance. The final act isn't about what happened. It's about what remains. You find yourself back in that motel, room 6, but this time you're inside it. The mural is cracked and faded now. The sparrows are peeling at the edges, wings curling from moisture and age. And the red writing? She remembered everything. It's been scrubbed off, almost. If you run your fingers along the wall, you can still feel it, like the paint soaked too deep to fully vanish. This room hasn't been touched since Mara's case went cold. But last month, a couple of urban explorers snuck in. They didn't take much, just photos. But one of those photos caught something no one noticed until a commenter pointed it out. Behind the headboard, barely visible in the corner of the frame, is a number 05. Faint, etched into the wall, not with a pen or marker, scratched in, and when that photo got passed around, someone finally connected it. In the Rachel Dunn case, police once found a locker key in her bag, stamped with 04. You feel it now, don't you? The thread weaving through names and years, places and symbols, keys, bells, notes, numbers, and always, always, the girls. Some believe there are 12 sparrows lost across 3 decades, each tied to one of these quiet marks, each disappearing without sound. Now I know what you're thinking. That's just a theory, a story built by people who need answers. But here's something real. In 2017, a low-level tech assistant at a police archive leaked several case files before being caught. He was bored, lonely, curious, and in those files, 12 sets of fingerprints, 12 missing women, different ages, different states. But the prints, 6 matched each other, across years, across names, which shouldn't be possible. Fingerprint patterns are unique, right? Unless these girls weren't missing in the traditional sense. Maybe they weren't gone so much as rearranged. You're curled up now, blankets pulled over your shoulder. You're safe, I promise. But your brain is still ticking gently behind your eyelids because it's starting to realize something. This story isn't about Mara alone. It never was. It's about a pattern repeating, unnoticed by most, like a tune only some can hear. And Mara, she might have tried to fight it. That flash drive, the one labeled Sparrow, they decrypted more of it. Audio files this time. In one, you can hear Mara breathing. She says quietly, I don't think I'm the first, but I want to be the last. Then silence, except for the bell. Just one chime, clear, defiant. That recording was time-stamped 1 day before her disappearance. Let's step outside the story for one last historical bend. There's an old Appalachian superstition called the return bell. It was a charm meant to bring someone back, not physically, but mentally. If a loved one had wandered, mentally or emotionally, ringing the bell near something they loved, an old sweater, a book, a letter, was said to call their soul home. The success rate? Well, let's just say you don't see it practiced much anymore. But Mara's mom tried it. After everything. She took Mara's old sweater, her journal, and the bell from the doorknob and rang it once every evening for a year. She said she felt something shift in the house, in the air, and then one night she stopped. When asked why, she just smiled and said she remembered who she was. That was enough. You're almost asleep now, and maybe in your dreams you'll walk into a field of tall grass, and maybe you'll see a post, and maybe you'll see someone waiting. If you do, don't be afraid. Just listen, because some stories only reveal themselves when no one's watching. The wind in that dream field is soft, not real wind, just the kind that happens when your mind starts to drift. You hear grass brushing against your jeans. The sun's gone, but it's not quite night. That in between hour where even the air forgets where it belongs. Ahead of you, there's someone standing, back turned, hair moving with a breeze that doesn't exist. You think it might be her, but you don't call out. Not yet, because you're not supposed to interrupt these things. Only witness. This is where the story starts folding in on itself. One of the last discoveries in the Mara Sullivan case never made the news, not because it was unimportant, because it was too strange. 6 months after she vanished, a box arrived at a local sheriff's station. No postage, no label, just left at the front door. Inside was a spiral notebook filled with drawings, pages and pages of sparrows, but not like the bird you're picturing. Not peaceful, not graceful. They were erratic, scribbled, some with missing wings, some with human eyes. And every 20 pages or so, one was drawn in red ink. Underneath those, the same phrase, "I remember the dream now." Experts were brought in. A criminal psychologist called it resonant dissociation, a term usually reserved for survivors of deep trauma, where the mind tries to tell a story through symbols instead of words. But then came the real kicker. On the back page of the notebook, written in childlike handwriting, Carla was never supposed to stay. That's when everything shifted. Investigators realized they'd been looking for a single event, one moment when Mara disappeared, one person who did it, one key to fit the lock. But maybe there isn't one. Maybe there are many, and maybe none of them fit perfectly. You're still here with me, right? Your body may be heavy, your thoughts softening at the edges, but this part wants to linger. You should know something else. Of the 12 suspected sparrows, 7 were confirmed to have left behind a journal. Each one included drawings of birds. Each one referenced bells, or dreams, or doors that wouldn't close. And everyone had one line in common. "I left the key where it all started. But what if it wasn't just a metaphor?" One online investigator, someone with far too much time and far too little sleep, built a digital map, layered the locations of the 12 disappearances with abandoned motels, former asylum sites, and decommissioned post offices. One overlap stood out. A one-room schoolhouse, long since collapsed, built in 1911, burned in 1983. No surviving photos, no town records. But someone spray-painted a sparrow on one of the remaining stones, and under it, the word 12. Now here's a strange but true historical thread. In 1912, a group of children in that very county reported seeing the girl who walks without feet. She would appear just before dusk, always at the edge of the schoolyard, never closer. And when asked what she wanted, one child reportedly said, "She's looking for her key, but it's not hers anymore." That story was buried in an old newspaper. Most people chalked it up to hysteria, but the local librarian archived it. Guess what her name was? Lydia Vance, the same girl from 1986. Is it a coincidence, or is it a loop? Something that turns over every decade, just enough to almost forget until it happens again. You shift a little now, almost dreaming, but still listening. Because these girls, they didn't just vanish. They crossed into something we don't have a name for, some space between memory and myth, between crime and echo. And if the bell rings 3 times, if the key is left under the right pillow, if the mural is painted just the right way, maybe, just maybe, they come back. But not as they were, and not for long. You're almost there now. The edges of the story are softening, like a fog gently wrapping around the final pieces. It's not meant to be solved, just felt. Back in Mara's town, years after she vanished, long after the news cameras left and the search parties gave up, someone broke into the storage unit again. No forced entry, no damage, just opened. The only thing taken, the silver bell. Everything else, the Polaroid, the flash drive, the second key, was left exactly where it had been. No fingerprints, no tracks, just that empty space, like a gap in a sentence you can't quite finish. But it gets better. 1 month after that break-in, a woman showed up at the police station in a different state. She was barefoot, dressed in an oversized coat, no ID, no purse. She said her name was M. She didn't give anything else. When pressed, she simply whispered, "I came back for the bell." Now, they ran her fingerprints, of course, but the system glitched, literally crashed. When it came back online, no match, nothing. She was released into psychiatric care, quiet, cooperative, but always humming. The same 3 notes, over and over. A nurse, curious, typed the notes into a music identification app. The result? A lullaby, one from the 1800s, called The Sparrow's Dream. That was the last anyone heard of M. The records stop. No forwarding contact, no last name, just a blank discharge file with 1 note scribbled on the margin. She sleeps with her eyes open, and you're ready to drift now. Let's let the story go. Let it dissolve in the softness of your breath. You've followed every key, every note, every whispered name through a maze of echoes. You've wandered fields that may not exist, listened for bells that others can't hear, touched walls that remember too much. And maybe, as you fall asleep tonight, part of you will carry a piece of that mystery, not in fear, but in wonder, because not all stories are meant to end. Some are meant to ring gently through the night, keeping company with those of us who still listen. So rest now. Let the sparrows settle on your windowsill. Let the wind tuck you in, soft and unseen. Your heartbeat is steady, your breath easy. The questions can wait. And if, in your dreams, you find yourself holding a silver key, don't be afraid to follow where it leads. Maybe someday we'll know the truth, but for now, sleep well